Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of 8 Push Done Spicy. This time I am back with glasses so I look more intelligent. Today we're going to be talking about Madison and the War of 1812. I have some paper on me because I'm going to forget what to say. We're human, alright? Let's just take it down a notch. So, let's start talking about the War of 1812. So, if you read above there, you know about the whole impressment issue and how we said that whoever stops impressing our ships first, that we would start trading with them again. Now, instead of doing anything like that, though, there was a very big war fever in America. Thomas Jefferson always said something along the lines of blood is good for revolution or I don't know. But the point is that he was okay with a little bit of bloodshed here and there to keep the country going. But there was a very big war fever going around called the War Hawks. Now, some of these War Hawks were Henry Clay of Kentucky, John C. Calhoun from South Carolina. They were new and young congressmen. They didn't really have any experience with the Revolutionary War like Jefferson, Adams, Washington, all of them did. So they didn't understand exactly what they would be getting themselves into when it comes to going to war. Also felt that France would be a better opponent because they blindsided us in the sense that they said they would stop impressing our ships and then did anyway. So they kind of pulled the fast one on that, and we weren't too happy with that. We also worked with Great Britain in the French and Indian War, and we won it once, so why can't we do it again? France just got out of a revolution, and we can't trust Napoleon, so we're not really going to have an alliance with them. Based on everything I just said, it seems like we should partner up with Great Britain, right? Wrong. We actually partner up with France, and we choose to go to war with Great Britain because they have Canada, and we want Canada. Now, as you watched in the previous video, we want to move west. We already had our Louisiana Purchase, we explored it. We want the West. We want land. So now we're like, oh, we want Canada. Britain has Canada. They're also enemies with France. They're arming Native Americans in American soil that we already won from you, Britain. We're kind of pissed off about it. I think rightfully so. Great Britain is also occupying the Great Lakes area and was supposed to leave. However, war was unpopular in the New England states because in the New England states was Federalists. Now, in the New England states, we were financially unprepared. Revenue from import tariffs declined, the bank expired and wasn't recharted, the Army and the Navy was defunded and depleted. We had 12 ships versus 800 state-of-the-art Great Britain ships. Ugh. Now we have poor leadership, and impressment is better than being conquered. So, James Madison gave in to war fever, and he was all like, nah, we're gonna declare war. We said impressment was the main issue because it's a lot easier than saying, and we're kind of pissed off, but we also really want Canada. Saying we want Canada and only Canada is basically a war of aggression. And we don't want to do that. We're a new nation, and we're also not able to at this point. We're not militarily able to. Now, but the interesting about this is that both the Orders of Council and the Milan and Berlin decrees from both Britain and France were repealed by the time we declared war. But like I said before, snail mail was even snailier than it is now back then. So we ended up having to go to war because we didn't know. Now, one quick thing I want to talk about is Tecumseh. Now, during all this time, Tecumseh was the unifier of the Native Americans. I remember the 3 Ds of Native Americans and why they were always, for the 4th D, destroyed. It was disorganization, disease, and displacement. They could always be moved, they were always unorganized, and they always died of disease. Indians. Tecumseh unified them, which took away one of those Ds. Great Britain took advantage of this and actually allied with the Native Americans and started arming them even more. They love arming Native Americans. Now, the reason I bring up Tecumseh and stuff, though, is that there was a little bit going on regarding the showdown at Tippecanoe, which brought William Henry Harrison into the limelight a little bit. The Battle of Thames, William Henry Harrison, the Tippecanoe guy, he engages Tecumseh. Tecumseh is killed, which ends the Indian Confederacy, which takes a toll on Britain a little bit because that was one of their allies. So, at Fort Detroit, which was one of the battles in the War of 1812, it was total disaster, tragedy, we were unprepared. We should have focused on Montreal, but in Fort Detroit, the Canadian invasion was halted. We surrender, and it was not good. It was pretty embarrassing, and our 3-pronged mission went wrong. Anything that went wrong bad. Fort Detroit, bad. We wanted some help in Canada, naturally. However, we did not get any help in Canada because of all the loyalists that were there. The loyalists went to Canada when we were starting the revolution. One victory, though, was the burning of York. That was a big one for us because we burnt York. And then we had the Battle of Lake Erie, which is debatably the most important. Oliver Hazard Perry, my middle name's Hazard. Now Canada is a draw. Both our invasions failed, their invasions failed, and the Indian threat is essentially neutralized. So another embarrassing thing for the Americans was the Bladensburg, I don't know, but there were races. So essentially, we abandoned post. As soon as the Brits were in sight, everyone runs away. Dolly Madison grabs George Washington's portrait before she leaves. Thank you, Dolly. What a doll. And the Brits burned Washington, D.C., which was the retaliation for when we burned York. It's unfortunate because Madison was a really great guy. He was endorsed by Thomas Jefferson. However, he's remembered as losing the capital. Sucks. Ironically, a hurricane came, put out the fire, but that killed more lives than the actual Bladensburg races itself. However, another turning point was at Fort McHenry. So the British bombarded us for day and night from this man-made barricade, right? Boo, boo, boo. So there's a giant flag still there, and the Brits ran out of ammo. The giant flag, Brits ran out. This defense of Baltimore was the turning point. They ran out of ammo, we held Baltimore, because we did fortify Baltimore instead of Washington, D.C., which is why it got burnt, and Baltimore did not. Peace negotiations at this point began in Ghent, Belgium, eventually leading to the Treaty of Ghent, which is mentioned above, and the British will now turn south. At this point, though, was the Hartford Convention, which is huge. It ended the Federalist Party, which is really, really sad, because I have a copy of Common Sense on my desk. I think they did a lot for us. However, they planned secession, and if you plan secession, that's treason. So at the Hartford Convention, that was the end of them. So another battle was the Battle of New Orleans, which was the last battle and the bloodiest battle of the War of 1812. Ironically, though, this took place. The final thing that we're going to talk about regarding the War of 1812, again, sorry, this is a lot. So after the Treaty of Ghent, essentially, nothing is adjusted or settled in the treaty. Everything was sort of preserved the way it was, a status quo. They agreed to restore pre-war conditions, and treaty actually said nothing about impressment or neutrality because France and Great Britain stopped oppressing us and stopped fighting. So let's talk real quick about the outcomes, and then we'll call this video a wrap, okay? So, the War of 1812 outcome, let's talk about some negatives. Well, we had Washington, D.C. burnt, the Federalist Party is dead, we didn't get Canada, nothing's gained, lives are lost. However, on the converse, we did remove Brits from the United States. The Indian threat is gone. Sorry, Tecumseh. We proved we can defend our borders. It's not just luck. We actually know how we're going to rumble now. We invested in the military. We have great relations with Great Britain in the future. And Harrison and Jackson are a new era of war leaders now that our older revolutionary heroes are getting a little bit older. And I think debatably the most important thing is the nationalism and economic dependence and pride in America that we got after this. The expansion of the Army and Navy was really important too. We stayed out of European affairs, and we focused on our country for a while. This was the beginning of America. We weren't a British colony that broke away anymore. We became America after the Battle of 1812. We could defend ourselves, and we were proud of it too. That's 8 Push Done Spicy for the War of 1812. Thank you for watching.